I would say I think at the end of the first one, I think when you get the second crazy things, I think it's right there. You do have to judge or the organizers would stop doing it. Or the organizers, yeah. Oh. Y'all may be seated. Yeah, you both. Yeah. Just so both teams are aware, ballots are on the phone, so I'm not paying attention. All right, just confirm no conflicts monitor, y'all. All right, in that case, we are ready to go. Does someone want to close the chair and just make sure that if you're the last one, leave the chair? All right, with that, let's get the show rolling. Are both sides ready? Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. All right, plaintiff, do you want to make introductions at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is William Johnston, and alongside my co-counsel, Mr. Jacob Zertucci.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We will be representing the plaintiff in today's case, handling the question of Miss Everhart.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Shaylee Desai, and alongside my co-counsel, Mr. Carson Pop.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We're going to be handling the questioning of Gauntlet.
All right,
Good morning, Your Honor.
and then defendant, let's do your appearance next.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Anaya Nelson, and today I, alongside my colleagues, Ms. Kiara Moon,
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Graham Umbenhauer,
Good morning, Your Honor.
and Ms. Claire Humphrey.
Good morning, Your Honor.
We represent the defendant in today's proceedings, Lambert Family Court.
All right. Plaintiff, do you have any pre-trial matters that you'd like to present?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd first like to invoke Rule 603, the constructive swearing in of all witnesses,
All right, granted.
and also 615, the constructive sequestration of all witnesses.
Does the plaintiff have a party rep?
We do not today, Your Honor.
All right, and defense?
The defense does not have a party representative, Your Honor.
All right, in that case, all witnesses will be presumed sequestered if they are not present.
Yes, Your Honor. We'd also like to point your attention to some relevant stipulations. It should be in that bench cover.
Oh, yeah. I can start turning it. Feel free to flag it.
First, we'd like to point your attention to stipulation 12, in which exhibits 1 and 2 are pre-admitted and may be used in opening statements.
Defense, do you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
All right.
Additionally, Your Honor, we'd like to point your attention to the stipulation following, 13, in which all hearsay objections have been waived to exhibit 3.
Defense?
That's our understanding as well, Your Honor.
All right.
We'd finally like to ask about any preferences, since we've never had the pleasure of being your court.
I'm pretty lax. Let's just make sure that the record reflects it for attorney stuff, but we don't need to pause to ask questions.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
All right. Defense, there are pre-trial matters to be on.
Just one note for the court before we get into openings, Your Honor. Because there are only 2 trial attorneys that are allowed to be at counsel table at any given time, you'll notice that throughout trial, we'll kind of be switching spots at counsel table. So just wanted to note that for the court before trial begins today.
All right. Plaintiff, that's what you're understanding.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Court shall take note. Anything else?
Not from the defense, Your Honor.
All right. With that, let's kick it to opening statements. Plaintiff, you're up first.
Yes, Your Honor. Their shortcuts cut his life short. It's July 2023. Max Maximilian is about to walk onto stage. He's a magician at the Lambert Family Carnival, and he's about to perform one of the most dangerous tricks a magician can do. But he's not saying. Because weeks ago, the defendant made him a promise to keep him safe. So when Max's assistant brings a gun onto stage, Max assumes that it's the gun the defendant promised they would buy. When Max's assistant points that gun, Max assumes that it's a gun the defendant has been expecting. When Max's assistant fires that gun, Max assumes it's not going to malfunction. You should have guessed. But yes. Because they took shortcuts to cut his life. That's why we brought a suit of recklessness against the defendant, the Lampert family crime. So we have a burden of proof. We have to prove to you by preponderance of the evidence, or more likely than not, that the defendant had a responsibility to keep Max safe. That they broke that responsibility without any care for Max's safety. That their actions directly caused Max's death. And we're going to meet that burden today, members of the jury, because we're going to call two witnesses to the stand. And their testimony is going to show you that they took shortcuts that cut his life short. First, we're going to call Gabby Gray, Max's assistant, to the stand. Ms. Gray is going to tell you about the trick that she and Max were supposed to perform that day. The bullet catch trick. She'll tell you that it's one of the most dangerous tricks a magician can perform, and that she told the defendant it could cost Max's life. The defendant's response. You'll learn that she forced him to do that, but that she made two promises. She was going to buy brand new equipment, and she was going to hire a qualified prop master to keep all of that equipment in check. But today the evidence is going to show that the defendant broke both of those promises. She cut corners. Because second, we're going to call Miss Emery Everhart to the stand, an expert in ammunitions and firearms. And Miss Everhart is going to tell you that before the defendant gave Max that gun, no one from the defendant's staff ever properly maintained that gun, ever properly checked that gun, ever properly cleaned that gun. Entire disregard for safety is what caused that gun to malfunction and shoot. Members of the jury. Their shortcuts cut his life short, and now Max is better. So at the end of today's trial, we're going to ask you to find the defendant life. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Defense, would you like to present an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Put your hand here. Opposing counsel. Members of the jury. They did their job right. Something went wrong. Members of the jury, we've all been there. You've had a doctor's appointment at 8 a.m. So you wake up on time. You get ready on time. And you hit the boat on time too. But then you get stuck in traffic and you somehow still end up late. You did everything right. You did your job right, members of the jury. Something still went wrong. That's what happened in today's case. You'll learn that contrary to what the plaintiff just told you, the Lampert family carnival didn't take shortcuts. Instead, they did their job right. They bought a working gun, they maintained that gun, they made sure it was safe. But even though they did their job right, something still went wrong. So what happened? Well, you'll learn today that Maximilian had a dangerous trick. You'll learn it was his plan to have his assistant point a gun directly at his head. It was his plan to be staring down the barrel of a gun. Or that if anything, a broken cartridge, a piece of dirt, a pebble flew out the other end of that gun, well, it could kill him. Members of the jury, you'll learn that Maximilian knew that risk. He understood that. You'll learn that he knew that even if everyone did their job right, someone could still get hurt. Now today, the plaintiff has the first burden. They have to prove to you that it's more likely than not that the Lambert family carnival acted reckless regard for Maximilian's life. But members of the jury, they won't be able to prove that to you today. Because we as the defense, we're bringing something called an affirmative defense. That means at the end of today's trial, well, there's a second question you have to ask yourself. You have to ask, did the magician, Maximilian, understand the risks of doing that magic? Because you'll learn today, members of the jury, that he knew that trick was dangerous, he knew it could get him hurt. And if he takes on those risks, members of the jury, well, the law says that you can't find the carnival liable if someone gets hurt. And to show you that, we're going to prove to you three things, members of the jury. First, that the Lambert family carnival did their job right. Second, that something still went wrong. And third, that Maximilian knew something could go wrong. First, you're going to learn that the Lambert family carnival did their job right, and you're going to hear from one of their employees themselves. Angel Ashmore is going to take this stand right here. They're going to tell you that they did their jobs. They didn't take shortcuts. They cleaned the gun, made sure there were blank bullets fired in that gun, made sure everything was safe. What went wrong? Well, you hear from an expert witness that magic trick is dangerous, that there are dozens of ways for that trick to go wrong, that it's impossible to guarantee that someone's safe. And throughout today's trial, you're going to learn that Maximilian knew those risks. That he was warned by the plot master that this trick was dangerous, that he ignored those warnings. That he knew that trick could go wrong in dozens of different ways, that he knew he could get killed, members of the jury. At the end of this trial, I'm going to ask you to find the Lambert family carnival not liable. Because sometimes you can do your job right, but something still goes wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Plaintiff, do you have a witness you'd like to call at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, the plaintiff called Gabby Gray.
All right, counsel, you may proceed when ready.
Yes, Your Honor. Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good afternoon. My name is Gabby Gray.
What do you do for work?
I'm a magician. I have my own set and I perform my shows at different carnivals across the country.
How are you involved in today's case?
I was Maximilian's assistant. I was on stage with him when he died.
When did you first start working for Max?
Back in 2018, I was working at this magic store and he came in one day. We got to talking and I remember I made this offhand comment about how I love to travel the world and perform magic. And right then and there, he offered me a job as an assistant.
Did you say yes?
I mean, I barely knew the guy, so I told him I'd have to think about it. But, he kept coming in and we talked about it for a few weeks. And eventually I said yes.
What was your role as Max's assistant?
I was his right-hand man. Any trick that required two people, planned, practiced, and I performed it.
Do you know Legacy Lamp?
I do. Legacy is the owner of Lambert Family Carnival. That's where Max and I were working.
How'd you first start working for the carnival?
The carnival had come to town. And they were there a week, and they were already asking Max if he would be the head magician.
Did you say yes?
We did. Okay. I remember we met with the owner, Legacy, to negotiate a contract. We had a few requests, and as soon as Legacy agreed to them in writing, we signed the deal.
What were your requests?
That the carnival keep us safe. The thing with magic tricks is that if equipment is too old or if it isn't properly maintained, the magician performing can get hurt.
How did the defendant promise to keep you safe?
Legacy promised us that she'd take 2 precautions. She told us that she'd get us all new equipment, that she'd have the carnival's prop master personally maintain all of our props.
How did your performance of the show result?
Beginning, full house on the first day. People were coming in from all over the state just to see our show.
Did attendance stay high?
Not exactly. By the end of June, I don't know, numbers were going down. That's when Legacy started pushing us to do something bolder for the final show.
What did Slam ask you to do?
Something flashy, dangerous. We floated a few ideas to her, and when Max mentioned the bullet catch trick, it was game over. That's what Legacy wanted us to do.
Can you tell us what the bullet catch trick is?
It's an illusion. It looks like an assistant fires a gun, and the magician catches the bullet between his teeth. In reality, the assistant is firing blank, and the magician already has the bullet hidden.
Is the trick safe?
No. Even if performed in perfect conditions, it can still be very dangerous. And that's why it's so important to properly maintain the equipment that we use.
Did you tell Miss Lambert that the trick was dangerous?
Told her that we didn't feel comfortable doing it, but that she didn't care. And she said she'd sue us for breach of contract if we didn't perform.
Was that the only time you told the defendant that the trick wasn't safe?
No, I tried to bring it up again the night before the show. But Legacy said that if we backed out, she'd personally ruin Max's life.
Did the defendant at least keep her promise about keeping you and Max safe?
No. Like it said in our contract, we were supposed to get a new gun, qualified prop master. But we didn't get it.
What do you mean you didn't get it?
I asked for a new gun and blanks. Eventually, the prop master got us a gun, but it would be used. And the blanks, we didn't get those until the day of the show, so we had no time to perform them.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation for the statement, it will be used. Overruled. Yes.
You know if that gun was at least being properly used.
Not from what I can tell. I remember I went to the prom tent to see see if I could practice with the gun, but the entire place was disorganized. Things were covered in dust. I mean, even our own equipment had scratches on it.
Was the gun inside that time?
But that's where it was being stored. And I remember I went to grab it because I wanted to practice with it, but out of nowhere, the carnival's prop master rushed up to me and told me it wasn't ready. Took it out of my hands.
Objection on Rule 404B, character evidence. They're trying to use this testimony about the tent being disorganized, being in a state of disarray, to show that it's more likely that on the day of the trip, well, that armor didn't take care of that problem.
There's one, Your Honor.
You may.
The witness testified that this was the day of the trip. That the day she went inside of that cloth tent to go look at the gun was later that night, she was going to be performing that. It's not character evidence, this goes to the very incident of this case is about.
Response that this is testimony regarding the day of the incident.
Your Honor, it's still being used as character evidence. They're trying to use those earlier moments in the day to show that right before the trip, well, that firearm was in his hand. Those are the moments we care about in today's trial. Whether that gun was clean, taken care of right before the trip. By saying that earlier in the day, well, that tent was in disarray, that it was being, the gun was being mishandled, all of that is character evidence being trying to use, that they're trying to use to show propensity at the time of the trip.
Any final words, Linda?
Yes, Your Honor, I understand opposing counsel's argument, if you're referring to months or even days before that incident. But this is testimony from just a few hours before the trick was about to happen. That's what today's case is about. We're allowed to use testimony and incidents from right before the trick and during the trick to prove that that gun was being used.
All right, no, I'm gonna overrule the objection.
Yes,
Yes, Your Honor. When's the next time you saw that?
Right before the show.
What do you remember about that?
Not much. Remember, I started normally. We're going motion. Shot the gun.
What happened after you shot the gun?
That's right. Shot the gun. All myself.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron. No further questions, Joe?
Thank you, counsel. Defense, their cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Gray. I'm just here to ask you a couple of questions about today's case. Ms. Gray, I want to start off by talking to you about what you mentioned on your direct examination. Because you told us that you knew that trip was dangerous.
You can. That's why it's so important that the people in charge of the equipment.
Ms. Gray, Max knew that trip was dangerous as well.
That's what he told Legacy. He told Legacy that he wasn't comfortable performing it. And that's what Legacy threatened to send.
Ms. Gray, even before that trip was performed, you and Maxwell, you practiced. Is that right?
Yeah. Only a handful of times. I performed it twice in 5 years that we were working together.
But Ms. Gray, you practiced it 7 times before the carnival even started.
Yes, like I said, over the 5 years that we were working together.
But let me just get this clear. Right before the carnival even began, in the months leading up to it, when you were trying to decide which tricks you wanted to use, you practiced it 7 times.
Yes.
You shot a blank at Max 7 times.
Yes, we went through the entire performance, and once we ran out of flames, we decided that we weren't comfortable performing the bullet catch trick. We decided that we were going to include other tricks in our act.
That's right. You decided you you weren't comfortable. Max told you he felt uneasy, is that correct?
Yes, that's what he told me.
I want to talk about why he might have said that. Because you and Max both were trained in firearms, is that right?
We were, had some training just because I've done the bullet catch trick in the past.
But you'd also taken specific firearms training courses.
We did.
You're even registered to own a firearm in the state of Vermont.
I am.
So you know how dangerous it can be to point a firearm at someone.
Like I said, the trick was dangerous. That's why we needed to work with the carnival, make sure that we were going to succeed.
And you know how dangerous even a blank round can be when in a firearm.
Yes. Especially one that isn't properly made.
But those blank rounds can be dangerous even when everything is perfectly maintained. But Mr. I want to move on to something we talked about on the direct examination. You mentioned a contract you signed, is that right?
Yes, it's one that we negotiated legacy at the beginning of our time with the carnival.
And you recognize that contract if I were to show it to you today?
I believe I will.
I'll let the record reflect on treating what's been pre-admitted as Exhibit 2. Approaching the witness with the stand. Ms. Gray, this is that contract, right?
It is.
I'd like to focus in on this second paragraph in this contract. Because it says that you and Max are independent contractors.
We were. Those were the terms under which we were hired. We were going to be paid per show.
And it says that if the carnival company doesn't agree with the act you put forward, well, then they don't have to pay. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what it says.
It says nothing about them having the right to sue if you put up an act they don't like.
Not in this contract specifically. When Legacy and I were talking, that's when we threatened to sue.
But this was the contract you signed when you agreed to the carnival, is that right?
It is. Max and myself.
So when you were in that meeting with Lex, and he told you that he would sue for breach of contract, you knew you weren't under any contractual obligation, is that right?
All I knew is that our boss was threatening us with a lawsuit.
But based on this contract that you signed, there was no grounds for that suit.
Not off this paper.
Then, Ms. Gray, I'd like to move on to one last thing. I'd like to talk to you about some things that you don't. Because you told us on direct examination that you and Max had a meeting with the carnival, all right, on the 28th of June.
Yes, we did. When attendance numbers were getting lower, Legacy started getting stressed that we needed to do something big.
And that's the meeting where he told you that you'd be threatened, is that right? That you threatened with breach of the contract.
That's exactly what the threat was. He said that he didn't care that Max was uncomfortable. Threat to sue.
But Ms. Gray, that was a full 2.5 weeks before the actual trip, is that right?
Yes, it was.
You don't know if Max and the carnival owner met at a different time.
I have no idea.
You don't know if the carnival owner ever walked back that threat of breach of contract.
As far as I knew, it still stood. It still stood up until the day before me. And Legacy threatened me again.
But you have no idea whether Max and the carnival owner ever talked over that deal again.
I have no idea.
Thank you, Ms. Gray. I have no further.
Thank you, counsel. Is there a redirect?
No redirect examination, Your Honor, we just raised that down.
All right, I know that this jurisdiction, River came up with it, so does the defense have a witness they're looking for?
Yes, Your Honor, we call Angel Ashford.
All right.
Good morning. Hi. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Sure. Hello. My name is Angel Ashman.
And what do you do for a living, Mr. Ashman?
I work at the carnival over at Lambert Family Carnival. I'm their props manager.
What exactly are the responsibilities of a props manager?
Well, the job is what it sounds like. I'm the guy in charge of all the equipment for the carnival. That also includes things like fireworks and firearms. So I'm also technically the armor of the place.
Were you trained for that role?
Yes, of course. At first, when I walked on, I didn't know anything. But my first year with the carnival, they enrolled me in a year-long intensive program with the former props master who'd been there for a while. He was a strict guy, a former military, and he cut my hair, it didn't stick. Yeah, I love the job inside and out.
Then I want to talk to you about someone you might have met at that job. Do you know someone by the name of Maximilian?
Yeah, I knew Max. He was a magician at our carnival. It's a little embarrassing to say, but I'd actually known about Max for years before I met him in person.
How so?
Well, when I was a kid, my dad took me to the carnival and I saw Max perform. I must have been 13 or 14 around then, but I never forgot about it. Can't blame Max for everything, but he's certainly a pretty big reason I decided to run off and join the carnival when I got home.
You mentioned that Max ended up joining your carnival. When was that?
His first performance was in early June, and that's when I got to meet him as well.
Then I'd like to talk about your interactions with Miss Maximilian. Did you ever talk about that?
Yeah. Well, most of my job is handling equipment, so that means talking to the magicians and the other performers. So we talked regularly about that, but we had one personal conversation about an act he was planning in July.
What was that conversation?
Well, in the week leading up, I talked to my boss, this guy named Legacy Lampert, about Max, and he told me that he was planning on having Max do a trick called the bullet catch. Now, I followed magic for a while. I'd seen the trick before, so I was concerned, and I went to talk to Max about it.
Did you voice those concerns to Max?
Yeah. I asked Max to lunch with me. When we got there, he said, "What are we doing here?" Because we never hung out with the two of us before. I told him I knew he was planning on doing the bullet catch, and that I didn't think he should do it. That I thought it was dangerous, that he should avoid it.
Did Max go ahead with that trick?
Of course. Over the course of our conversation, it became clear that he was still going to do it. So I told him that I would do everything I could in my role as a props master to make it as safe as it could possibly be.
And I'd like to talk about your preparation for that. What equipment was involved?
Just some blank rounds and the firearm, a handgun to shoot them, of course.
Were there maintenance procedures for that, those pieces of equipment?
Absolutely. Specifically for the firearm, I knew that I was supposed to disassemble it, reassemble it to make sure there weren't any bullets in the chamber. I was supposed to clean it often. And I was supposed to test the rounds, especially the blanks, to make sure that they were safe.
And did you do those procedures on the day of the trip?
Absolutely. I promised Max I was going to make it safer. So right before that trick happened, I got the gun and I walked through the whole process. I checked the bullets, I disassembled it and cleaned it, and after that, I even tested out the blanks to make sure that they were okay.
What did you do right after cleaning that gun?
I wanted to make sure that nothing else could mess with the gun. No dirt could get in the chamber, nothing like that. So immediately I put it in the lockbox and I closed it. I brought it to the stage for them to use.
I want to talk about what happened on that stage. Were you there for the trip?
No. I was working at the time, and I was in the prop tent. You know, I heard the gunshot and screaming. And so I ran over to see what was going on.
What did you see?
Well, I got inside and most of the crowd had already left and went out. And I looked up at the stage and I saw Max's assistant. She kind of like glazed over, right? And then I saw Max on the floor in a pool of blood.
What did you do?
Well, I ran over to Max, and I saw that he was bleeding out of his neck and out of his head. And so I took off my sweater and I wrapped it around his head and tried to put pressure on it by holding it that.
What happened next?
We called paramedics and I just kept telling Max that help was on the way and that he was going to be okay. And he just kept whimpering and saying the words, "Help me," over and over. Stop whispering. That's
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, Counsel. Is there a cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed when ready.
Good morning, Ms. Bash. I represent Max's estate. I have some questions for you.
okay.
And you testified that you were the person responsible for handling Max's gun, right?
Yes, that's right.
You said you went through this year-long intensive training program, is that right?
Yes, I did.
And there's some things you left out. For firearms, you have to have specialized training, is that true?
Absolutely, of course.
I'm gonna talk about how much training you actually received. The only gun safety training you've ever completed is watching one video, right?
Right. The National Carnival Association sends us a video. We're going to be armors as well as pop masters, and we're supposed to review that.
And there's still some details you left out about that video. You watched it one time only, correct?
Right. That's what we're supposed to do.
You sped through it at 3 times speed, isn't that true?
Sure.
You watched it 4 years before this incident,
Right. The certification lasts 10 years.
but you never reviewed that video even once in those 4 years leading up to this incident.
No, I understood everything I had to do. I had to clean, I had to disassemble, I had to keep it safe and all that.
And Mr. Ashman, you have to keep it safe. You knew that if you made any mistakes, there could be some pretty serious consequences, right?
Yeah.
You knew you had to be focused so that you didn't make mistakes with that gun.
Yeah.
I want to talk about how focused you actually were when you were handling that gun. As you said on direct examination, you actually had 2 jobs at the carnival: props manager and armor.
Right. It's kind of one job inside of another.
Right. So in addition to that gun, you're in charge of every single other prop at the carnival, isn't that true?
Sure, that's the job.
All of the stunt equipment,
Yeah,
right? The juggling, that's your responsibility.
yeah. I handle the pins and the balls for the jug.
Right, even the animals at the carnival.
Yeah, everything from stuffed tigers to tigers.
You have a ton of responsibilities outside of just that gun, isn't that true?
Sure, it's a big job.
Right, you used to have 2 assistants helping you out. Right?
Right. We were kind of on a shoestring budget, so slowly but surely Legacy weaned me off with the assistants, and then it was just me.
You're saying she weaned you off of the assistants. She fired both assistants by the time Max came to the carnival. That's true.
And she let me go.
Right? So you were working alone, handling every single problem of the carnival.
Yes, but I promise I had it handled.
You're saying you had it handled, you felt pretty stretched thin, didn't you?
Sure, it's a big carnival, but I was on top of it.
On the day of the incident, you were overwhelmed by all the responsibilities.
Yeah, it's a fast job. but
You felt like you were being pulled in 100 different directions.
Sure, that's the day-to-day.
And I want to talk about it in sort of shortcuts. And you were the one who purchased that gun, right?
Yes, but I didn't take any shortcuts with maintenance.
But you didn't buy a brand new gun.
No,
You bought a used gun
that was what was in our budget. Yes, sir.
for a low-end price point.
Right, I went to a local gun club, something reputable, and they sold me a gun.
There's another detail. You bought a used gun for a low-end price point that you believed was about to be decommissioned.
Yeah, they told me it was a little bit cheaper, and so they sold it.
That didn't concern you. You bought the gun.
I thought about it, but I told Max that it was going to be decommissioned.
Mr. Ashman, when you bought that gun, you didn't even think to ask the seller whether there might be issues with that gun, that it might need to be decommissioned.
They didn't tell me about any issues. I told Max exactly what they told me.
You're saying they didn't tell you about issues. You didn't ask if there were issues, right?
No, I didn't think there were anything wrong with it.
And I want to talk about if you took shortcuts with the ammunition for that gun. You also purchased the ammunition, correct?
Yes,
You know that a basic rule of gun safety is that when a trick only requires blank cartridges, you should only store a gun with blank cartridges and nothing else, correct?
sure.
But you bought blanks and live bullets, right?
Right. The gun club explained that legally they're not allowed to sell me one or the other in case there's a manufacturing error and a regular bullet ends up with the blank bullets. So they had to sell me both.
And so you're saying you didn't have a choice as to buying two of the other, right?
That's right. Yes, sir.
But you did have a choice of getting rid of the live bullets once you didn't need them.
We didn't get rid of them. We just kept them in the prop tent in case we needed them in the future.
Exactly. You violated the rule by keeping the live bullets with the gun.
Right. They weren't right next to each other, of course.
I just want to be clear. You didn't need the live bullets.
Not at that time, but maybe in the future.
You chose to keep the live bullets right next to you.
Sure, they were in the same tent.
I want to talk about if we can actually trust the claims you made on direct examination. You said you had a few responsibilities when it came to maintaining the gun properly, right?
Of course.
Disassemble the gun, that's what you said.
Right. You're supposed
Reassemble.
Sorry.
Disassemble and reassemble.
Right. You disassemble it so that you can clean it, the barrel, the chamber, all of it. And then you reassemble it afterwards.
Right, you have to clean the gun properly.
Of course.
You have to testify.
Right. Even if it's just blanks, you're supposed to make sure that it's not live ammunition.
You have to check to make sure that you loaded the gun properly.
Absolutely.
And you're claiming that on the day of the incident, you did all of those things to the standards, right?
I am 100% sure I did it right before I put it in the lockbox.
So it was in the prop tent?
Yeah.
There's no cameras in the prop tent?
No.
There wasn't a single other person in the prop tent with you to confirm that you performed those procedures?
Well, no. Gabby was there. That was his co-star. She tried to pick up the gun, and I told her that I had to work on it before
Mr.
she could
Ashmore,
use it.
Gavin was not there when you claimed that she performed all of those procedures. She was there before.
No, but I told her I needed the gun and she couldn't use it yet, so I could do those things.
She had left once you claimed that she disassembled, reassembled, tested, and checked.
Right. She didn't stick around for the process.
You were the only person. Yes,
Of course.
nothing further.
Thank you, counsel. Is there a redirect?
No redirect, Your Honor. We just asked the witness.
All right, witness back. All right, since this is not a round or a wrap, we're not taking recess, we're gonna just take a minute, reassemble, but we'll stay here. Jury, just give me a thumbs up once you've submitted the ballot first half. Submit. But press that page. Oh, I didn't press it. All right, Jordan, let me know when you.
Okay.
And then- Okay, all right, well, in that case, let's move to the second half. Jumping back to the plaintiff, does the plaintiff have a witness to claim?
Yes, Your Honor, but before we call our witness, can we actually invoke stipulation 14, in which all objections have been waived to 4, 5, and 7?
Defense, is that your understanding of the stip?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
All right,
Now we may enter them in evidence.
yeah, it says without objection, so yeah, you may enter them at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, the plaintiff calls Emery Everhart to the stand.
All right.
Good morning. Would you state your name to the members of the jury?
Hello, I'm Emery Everhart.
What do you do for a living, Ms. Everhart?
I'm a consultant in firearm safety and education. I work at my own consulting firm, Addy and Whitney Consulting.
Where did you go to school?
I went to uni at Georgia State. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I also have a master's degree in education from the University of Georgia.
After graduating, what did you do?
I joined the US Police Force, spent 8 years with the Butler PD and loved it so much I came back for another 4 as a firearm consultant.
Why did you stop being a firearm consultant?
Well, originally I was going to head back to the UK sometime. But unfortunately, my sister was killed. Addie. She was working in Hollywood at the time, her first film. And unfortunately, on that set, there was a gun that malfunctioned as a result of improper maintenance and handling. Instead of going back home, I went on to found my consulting firm, Addy and Whitney.
What do you do as a consultant at Addy and Whitney?
Our main philosophy at Addy and Whitney is not to only understand how guns are used, but to also look into how people approach using guns. We find it's much, much better if people are trained and understand firearms than are careless.
Now, Ms. Everhart, why are you here today?
I was hired to investigate the circumstances around the bullet catch incident on July 14, 2023, when magician Maximilian was fatally shot.
How did you conduct this investigation?
I use something called a post-incident safety evaluation. It's represented by the acronym BANG. It represents 3 main topics.
Now, what does BANG stand for?
B, the background. AN, anyone or anything related to the actual shooting itself. And G, gun maintenance.
Well, after using your method, what did you find?
I found the most likely scenario that would occur was that improper maintenance of a gun caused a malfunctioning blank that led to the death of Mr. Maximilian.
Well, let's break this down and start with the first letter of BANG. B. What was the background of this case?
It was a live performance of a magician. This makes it a firearms and entertainment show, which is especially relevant as we have to consider all the precautions put into place to prevent issues and things like the bullet catch.
Well, what's the bullet catch?
It's a performance where the magician shoots a gun at another person, and that person seems to have caught the bullet in their
Does the assistant actually shoot a bullet?
No, the assistant used something called a blank instead.
Would you explain to the members of the jury what a blank is?
Of course. So it might sound as if a blank is perfectly safe, but it's not. It's everything in a high ground except for the actual bullet. And a blank can be very dangerous by itself. It fires anything in the gun, whether it be dirt or debris, with the same force of an actual bullet. It's just as fatal.
Well, for someone like me that doesn't understand guns very much, could you simplify that for us?
Sure. I have a pen here. I brought it in from the office. It was hanging around on my drawers. If you look at it, it seems like it would work correctly. But if you look at this very tip, there's a little plastic piece that impedes its function. Now pretend that this pen is a gun, and that this piece is any dirt or debris. That dirt and debris is all it takes to stop that gun from working correctly.
Well, after looking at the background of this case, what did you conclude?
I concluded that the most likely scenario to occur was a malfunctioning bank.
Now I'll move on to that second part. Anyone and anything. What did you find there?
Well, there were two things. The anyone would be the actual armor in this case, Angel Ashmore. And the anything would be that Block 22. Angel Ashmore was the prop master in charge of actually maintaining all these equipment. The armors are responsible for universally maintaining as well as supervising any activity that uses firearms.
How about the gun?
Well, the gun in this instance was that Block 22. It was used to, unfortunately, directed directly at Max and catastrophic results.
Well, is there any way of preventing these catastrophic results?
Yes, the armor is actually in charge of making sure that the person firing the gun is comfortable with that actual weapon.
Now, I want to move on to that last one, the G, gun maintenance. What did you find there?
I found that Angel Ashmore did not take the correct precaution when inspecting the gun after purchase or cleaning the gun after every fire.
Well, based off of what you reviewed, how did Angel Ashmore review that gun?
Not very well, I'm afraid. In inspecting the gun, he purchased the gun from a used gun store. It was about to be decommissioned, suggesting a heavy use of the gun. And he didn't look more closely into the actual gun itself. I could probably show you if I had a picture of the gun.
Let the record reflect on approaching the witness with Exhibit 4. Now, Ms. Everhart, what do we see here?
Well, if you look carefully at this gun, on this grip, you can see there's already scuff marks, there's already patterned discoloration. And on the shaft itself, there's corrosion, suggesting extensive use of the gun, corroborating the idea that it was heavily used. Even normal wear and tear of the gun can cause issues and malfunctions. The fact that Angel Ashmore didn't take a closer look is concerning to say the least.
Well, how about the cleaning of the gun?
Well, that was also less than ideal. Angel Ashmore writes very little in his account of actually cleaning or maintaining that weapon. And in Gabby Gray's account, the magician's assistant, she notes there's dirt and dust in the project. Remember that example I showed you with the pen earlier? That's exactly what may have happened.
So, Ms. Everhart, considering these three factors, what did you conclude what happened on July 14th?
Well, looking at the maintenance of the gun, the purchasing of the gun, the armorer's credentials and training, and what he actually did on the set, I concluded that a malfunctioning blank fired from an improperly maintained gun was what killed Maximilian.
No further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Is there a cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we may proceed when ready.
Good morning, Ms. Everhart. My name is Anaya Nelson. I'll be asking you some questions today on behalf of the Lambert family firm. All right? Of course. Now, you have a lot right on this case, don't you?
I'm not sure in terms of what.
Well, ma'am, let's talk a bit more about that. Because like you testified earlier, you lost your sibling to a firearm accident, right?
That's true.
Ma'am, that firearm accident, it took place on a film set, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's true.
We can agree that you don't think that accident was your sibling's fault, right?
No, it was ruled that it was the improper maintenance of the gun is what killed him.
That's right, ma'am. You think that that gun not being properly maintained is the reason why Annie died, right?
It was ruled so, yes.
Ma'am, in your words, your innocent sibling paid for a corporation's mistake.
Objection, Your Honor. Did you hearsay?
Response?
Your Honor, these are the witness's own words. She can say yes or no. I'm not eliciting any hearsay. I'm just asking her what she thinks.
Verified, Your Honor?
Yeah.
This is still an out-of-court statement being used for the truth matter asserted. It's the witness's own statement, yes, but they're using it in the form of hearsay.
I think you can slightly rephrase, so I'm gonna sustain, but I think you get the same points.
Yes, Your Honor. Motion is correct.
No answer was given, so nothing is.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, you think that your sibling paid for a corporation's estate, isn't that right?
Yes, if the gun had been properly maintained, my sister would still be here.
Then you'd say that accident changed you permanently.
Yes, I founded my consulting firm as a result.
Ma'am, if that accident changed you permanently, I want to talk about what happened after it took place, because like you just said, after your sibling passed away, that's when you decided to found your consulting firm, right?
Absolutely.
Ma'am, you see these two cameras in the front of the courtroom, right?
Yes, I do.
Ma'am, you see these two cameras in the back corners of the courtroom?
I see those as well.
Ma'am, you see that iPad over here recording you as you're testifying here in court today?
Yes, I do.
Ma'am, you think this trial will be televised, right?
I do.
You think that this trial will garner a lot of attention on social media, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, you think that if Legacy Family Carnival is found liable in this trial, will it might prompt the change that you want?
Yes. Again, I found through all the evidence that they were ultimately responsible. And if that this case goes in the way and the favor of the plaintiff, hopefully more change will happen for gun safety.
Well, that's a yes to my question, ma'am. You think that that change might happen if Legacy Family Carnival is found liable in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
You think that if Legacy Family Carnival is found liable, well, the accident that changed you permanently is less likely to happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, ma'am, if you think a verdict of liable might prompt that change, I want to move on and talk a bit more about your investigation. Because we can agree that you weren't able to conduct it the way that you wanted, were you?
No, I was able to conduct it to the fullest extent I could.
To the fullest extent you could, ma'am. We can agree that your first step in these types of analyses is to analyze the gun that was used, right?
Of course, it's always preferable to have the actual weapon. But in a lot of cases, like this one, the gun sometimes isn't available.
Well, ma'am, like you just said, it's always preferable to have access to that gun, right?
Yes, that's true.
But in this case, you couldn't even analyze the gun that was used, could you?
No, ma'am.
And because you couldn't analyze that gun, well, you have to rely on affidavits, true?
That's correct.
Well, if you have to rely on affidavits, let's talk about what you found when you did it. Because, ma'am, we can agree that when Gabby Gray and Max, well, we can agree that you don't think you should practice aiming a gun at a person during the bullet catch, right?
That's true. It's beyond my responsibility to spot situations like these and stop them.
So, ma'am, that's a yes to my question. You don't think you should practice aiming the gun directly at someone?
No, ma'am, I don't.
In fact, ma'am, you think it's rarely necessary to aim the gun directly at someone at all?
That's true.
But Ms. Everhart, that wasn't the case for Mr. Maxwell, was it?
Fortunately, no, it wasn't.
Ma'am, you found that when the two of them were when Maximilian was practicing that trick with his assistant, well, they practiced with her aiming the gun directly at him, right?
Exactly. An armorer like Arevalo should have stepped in immediately. It was terrible, but it didn't.
Ms. Everhart, I want to be clear. In the materials that you reviewed, when Miss Ray was practicing aiming the gun directly at Mr. Maximilian, he didn't say, "I think this is dangerous," did he?
No, ma'am.
He didn't say, "Don't aim that gun directly at him."
Again, no.
He didn't say, "I don't think we should do this trick."
No, he did not.
Ma'am, Maximilian followed through on that trick on July 14th, didn't he?
Yes, unfortunately.
And then when they followed through on that trick, well, they did it just like they practiced with Miss Ray aiming that gun directly at him, right?
Yes. Unfortunately, no one was there to stop them.
So, ma'am, that's a yes to my question on July 14th. They practiced, when they did that performance, Miss Gray was once again aiming that gun directly.
Yes. It will.
Thank you, Miss Everhart. I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Is there a redirect?
No redirect at this time, Your Honor.
All right, well, then the witness may be excused. Now jump back to the defense. Defense have a list of witnesses.
Yes, Your Honor, the defense must have this fact.
You may proceed when ready.
Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Of course. Good morning. My name is Tempest Trek. That's Tempest like a strong wind, or like Shakespeare, whatever my parents were thinking. My name is Tempest.
What do you do for a living?
I am a magic historian.
Magic historian.
Yeah, really. I'm not a wizard or anything. I teach and I consult. I use my knowledge of how magic tricks work to work with magicians and help them both design and perform really cool illusions.
How'd you get into magic history?
I grew up loving street magic. I wanted to perform myself. I was going to be Tempest the Terrific. It turned out I was Tempest the very mediocre, so I figured I'd rather help people do cool tricks than do them myself forward. I worked as a magician's assistant for a while, then I got to go to school and actually study magic.
Where'd you go to school?
Not Hogwarts. But I went to Emory, which I thought was pretty close. After that, I got my master's from Case Western, took a gun safety training course, and started working. It's what I've been doing since.
And how are you involved in today's case?
On July 14th of last year, a magician named Maximilian was performing a trick called the bullet catch. Something went wrong, and he passed away. Defense counsel asked me to review that case to see if that death might have been avoided.
Sir, I want to be upfront with the members of the jury. Before today, did you know anyone involved in this case?
I did. I actually knew Max. I worked with him to design some of the tricks a couple of years ago.
And what was your relationship like?
At the time, not great. Max took some of my tricks and passed them off as his own. At the time, it stung.
Sir, did your relationship with Max affect any of your conclusions in today's case?
No. I was asked to look at this case. I thought it was interesting, and that's why I agreed.
Well, then I want to talk about how you conducted this case.
Right.
What materials did you review?
I got to look at all kinds of documents, including a variety of witness statements and exhibits, as well as the report of his evidence.
And what did you do with all those materials?
I conducted what's known as a post-incident safety evaluation, or a PIS eval. It's an unfortunate acronym. So please think of it as the peace evaluation. What that means is I look at the best practices and risks of a case and compare it to what actually happened with this trick. Try to figure out what happened.
I'm going to talk about that with you. What exactly is that bullet catch trick?
It might actually be easier to show you if I could do that.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to join me in the well for a demonstration.
Great.
So this actually needs a volunteer. There's a magician and an assistant, so Ms. Nelson.
I can do that. How do I help?
So just stand right here. So you'll be the assistant, I'll be the magician. The first thing that you need to do is pull out a gun. While the audience is focusing on this moon, what I would do is take a bullet from my pocket and put it in my mouth. Then you point the gun at my head, it's okay. And fire. Bang! I pull the bullet out of my mouth.
Sir, what did you find in that trick?
Well, the reason that I'm okay is because the bullet should be not a real bullet, it should be blanks in the gun.
There are blanks in the gun. Is that trick still missing?
It is. Just because there's blanks in your weapon doesn't mean it's not dangerous. In fact, it always is. We swap places, I can show you. So I'm the assistant, you're the magician. Every time you have to do the bullet catch trick, that means that you have to point, aim, and fire a gun at another person. That's never safe. In fact, people have died doing this trick before. You can never really guarantee your safety in this trick, but you can take steps to reduce the risk of that.
Thank you, sir. You can take your seat now.
Thank you.
Mention some safety steps. What exactly are they?
So if you're a carnival, like the Lambert family carnival, then what you want to do is you want to make sure you're cleaning the gun, maintaining the gun, and storing the gun generally and properly.
Why is it so important to take those steps?
They reduce the chances of something like a blockage or misfire. If you're firing a blank round, then what you're really doing is creating this mini explosion inside of the gun chamber. The force of that gets forced out of the barrel of the gun. What that means is that there's shrapnel, debris, dirt, that can get fired out and hit you. Taking those steps reduces the chance that something like that happens.
What did you find in this case?
Based on my review, it doesn't seem very likely that there was any kind of mix-up with the type of ammunition, whether it was blanks versus bullets. From what I found that Mr. Ashmore, the prod master in this case, Lambert Family Carnival, did their job right to generally maintain the equipment. They did what they needed to make it less deadly.
Less deadly. Sir, were we taking those steps to make sure the trick was safe?
With the bullet catch, you can never guarantee your safety. Even if things work perfectly at a brand new, fresh gun, it was wonderful. There's still many, many ways this can go wrong.
What do you mean?
I mean, a misfire in the gun can cause debris, a speck of dust you can't clean off. That could fire out and kill you. And if that blank is misloaded and malfunctions, then that explosion could be too big and that could kill you. There's just no way to guarantee your safety with the bullet catch.
So I want to summarize your findings for the members of the jury. What was your ultimate conclusion?
The bullet catch trick is dangerous. There's no magic in the world that gets to change the fact that you're pointing, aiming, and firing a weapon at another human being. Part of our job as magicians is to know those risks, to learn the trick, and then decide whether or not to perform it. Based on my review, the most likely explanation is that the Lambert Family Carnival did their job right to take those necessary steps. Something still.
Thank you, sir. I've been through your own.
Thank you, counsel. Cross examination.
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed when ready.
Good morning.
Good morning, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm actually out here now, just visiting Murado. Gonna go back home in a bit, but it's a lot of.
Now, I actually want to talk about something you mentioned on your rounds.
Of course.
Your relationship with Max. Because
Right.
you actually left something out, didn't you?
You have to be specific, sir. I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, you didn't just not get your credit for those tricks, right?
So that's part of what happened. Max took the tricks and passed them off as his own. The wizarding world felt that Max's story was unbelievable.
Well, not just that, you were dropped by every magician you were working for, correct?
Right, I was working for a magician named Mr. Hank. He let me go out of that.
And in fact, that's the reason you even became a historian, correct?
Right, when that happened, I got to go to school, learn about magic history, and start working more in teaching and education. I mean, there were pros and cons.
But even then, you're still a consultant, right?
Right, I'm a consultant, I'm a teacher, I'm helping open at a university instead of an awful science program, all of those things.
In which high-profile magicians, they still don't hire you. Isn't that right?
That's true, not for the consultant.
Now let's actually move on to the field you want to go into, expert witnessing. Now, you joined this case where there aren't many magical historians, correct?
Like magical historians in general, it is a niche field, that's true.
Well, you don't really get many chances to testify, right?
Oh, that's true. Magical historians aren't often expert witnesses.
In fact, this is your first trial, isn't it?
That's true. I've never testified in a trial.
But the thing is, you actually have a job lined up right after this one, don't you?
That's not true, sir, no.
Well, there's another carnival that's offering you a job, isn't that?
Oh, well, that's true. A carnival called the Banana Shack said that they might hire me, but it's nothing confirmed. They just called me and said this could be the case.
Well, let's make sure we understand the details of that offer.
Sure thing.
Because they will only hire you on if LFC wins, correct?
I believe that's what they said. That's right.
And if they, watching at home, believe that your testimony is
Should be all our speculation that
You may.
the host council just asked a question and presuppose that these people were watching at home. We have no foundation on the record to say that he's testifying to that instead.
I respond, Your Honor? Your Honor, it is known by this witness that the potential employers from this carnival are currently watching this trial to see if they would actually bring him on as an expert witness.
All right, I think we're missing a little bit of foundation, so I'm gonna sustain, but I think a question more will probably remedy the situation.
Yes, Your Honor. And you're well aware that they're watching at home, correct?
I'm not sure if they're watching on the camera, but I do know they're following along.
And they're making sure that your testimony is useful to them, correct?
I'm not really sure what they're making sure of at this point. They would know that better.
Now, I want to move on to what you found today.
Sure thing.
Now, you believe that LFC generally maintained their equipment, correct?
I do.
But you believe that there's mishandlings, how they handled the gun, right?
There were some mistakes, that's true. Ultimately, I think that they did their job.
Now, I actually want to show you an expense request form that you relied on to come to your conclusions. Is that all right?
Of course, I'd have to see them.
Now, could you flip over in that binder? It should be exhibit 3.
That towards the end.
Should be near the end, yes.
Got it.
Now, this expense report, you're familiar with it, correct?
I am.
Does it look changed or altered in any way?
Not from the last time I saw it, no.
Your Honor, the prosecution offers the expense request, exhibit 3, it's evidence.
Any objections?
No, Your Honor.
All right, if they without objection.
Now, look in here, we see that the armorer, he's the one who created this, correct?
Yes, so it seems that Mr. Ashford, the armorer, wrote up this form, offered a couple options, and then it was signed off.
And we also see that the owner, they're the one who signed it.
Right, that's this legacy thing.
I just want to be clear here, on this sheet, it even says that Max, he wants the high-end option, right?
Yes, that's what the sheet says.
In fact, you know he was actually promised that high-end option gun, correct?
Based on the materials I reviewed, that's what I believe Ms. Gray mentioned.
In fact, a new gun would actually make the trip safer, wouldn't it?
It may have, sir. I do believe that the gun in this trick was maintained properly.
Well, let's be clear here. They didn't go for that high-end option, right?
Well, based on this document, they went for a gun purchased from another store that was then clean and maintained. That's right.
They went for the low-end option, right?
Right, sir. There were 3 recommendations here. They went for the one with the low end price.
They didn't even go for the next possible option. They went for the lowest possible.
The low end option is the one that was, that's
One that here says that it can have its own issues, right? Like being heavily used.
oh, right. The gun may have been heavily used, hence the need to do that extra maintenance, which I found was good.
Well, on top of that, we see that they went for the midpoint for the blanks, correct?
Yes, that's what it says.
But you're well aware that in this case, they actually went for the option lower than that, right?
So the midpoint option here says they would purchase it online. I believe what happened is they had to purchase it from a local dumpster. But to be clear, these were blanks mixed with bullets. No, I don't believe they were mixed. No.
Well, if you read that document right there, they would be blanks potentially mixed with bullets, correct?
It says greatest chance of live ammunition. Based on my review and actually what was Everhard analyzed, that doesn't seem like a very likely outcome.
So in this situation, these are the decisions made by LFC, correct?
These are the things that LFC proposed and then signed off on. That's
Decisions that you don't know if Max knew, correct?
I believe Mr. Ashmore communicated when the gun was purchased to Mr. Maximilian, so I don't think that's true.
Well, you don't have a direct evidence that he knew about this, correct?
Well, Mr. Maximilian had passed away before I was able to work on this, so that's
And yet, you say it's the magician's responsibility.
absolutely, sir. Part of it's on the carnival, but as magicians, we need to know what we're doing when we get into a trick like this. Absolutely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Rivera,
No, Your Honor, I asked that Mr. Chapel on to send down.
witness man, thank you. All right, with that, at this point, we now submit our ballots, once you've got the second half in, and so just let me know once you submit. Good. Perfect, in that case, congrats, you guys have finished the first round of Gauntlet, so obviously, as we know, next check-in is at noon, so we obviously want to get you guys a chance to get a lunch. So in terms of how it's gonna work, we're just gonna quickly go around the three of us. We're just gonna give one of our favorite moments for each of the witnesses, and then we'll call it a day. I think that's just to make sure I remember. For Gabby Gray, I think it was a fantastic use of silence. I think a lot of witnesses sometimes feel like they have to talk, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not say anything. And I think during the direct, there were definitely very powerful moments where silence spoke louder than any words. Switching over to Angel Ashmore, I think the description of when you get on the scene was very good at painting a picture in the jury's mind in terms of what you were seeing. Jumping over to Emery Everhard. It's good that I named these witnesses because Lord knows I would not remember what their names were otherwise. For Everhard, I thought that was a fantastic use of a bias pocket that you probably anticipated and building it into your backstory. It both humanizes, especially for an expert, which sometimes can be regarded in AMTA as like the more like two-dimensional witnesses of the bunch, but it also helps to diffuse that point before the cross gets up there. And then jumping over to Tempest Trap, apologies as your parent that named you. I thought it was a good balance of adding levity, but while also maintaining the ability to teach the jury something, in this case, like the history. That's what I've got. I'll kick it to you.
Hi all, my name is Adam Selkov. I coach UC Santa Cruz, which is just a little bit up north of y'all are in California. Fun fact that isn't really relevant now, I run the Instagram, and I am leading Rookie Rumble this year. So hopefully all of you will be there in some capacity, whether that is judging or competing. I don't know how old you are. Based off of how you guys did, I'm assuming you're all juniors and seniors, but who knows, maybe we have some underclass in here. I forgot that we were doing one first, so as Sam was talking, I was quickly writing it down.
That's why I went first.
I'm going to start with the expert because I think it's the same for both. I thought both of your demos were really, really fun. The pen one I thought was super cool, and I like pulled it out, and I'm sure everyone has a pen, but like the way you sort of dissected it, I thought was really, really captivating. And for the defense expert, the standing the well and moving back and forth also so engaging. It really painted a great picture as to what happened. I can't see you, this thing's in the way. But yeah. For our sympathetic witnesses, I don't remember the names of the plaintiff one. You had a few moments where you had this quiver, and it was so good. Like it was partially with the silence, but it was just like the emotion wasn't in your voice, it was in your face, and that was so phenomenal. And for our defense, sympathetic, hello, I think yours was your dimensions, like, you had moments where you were joking, you had moments where you were serious, you had moments where it was clear that you were like traumatized, for lack of a better word, like, there was a lot of like, to use one of the categories, there was a lot of depth in that performance, so there wasn't like one moment, it was sort of just the arc of the thing that is the thing that most stands out.
Hi, I'm Tori. I didn't go witness by witness, but overall, I agree with the feedback as far as the experts engaging, doing those demonstrations is very beneficial for kind of keeping everyone attentive. Sometimes test one can drag on, so just those little breakups help a lot. So I think that was well done by both. I was impressed with both sides cross-examination. The way that you guys are either repeating what they're saying and tying that into your next question was well done. Also, the pre-butting of the things that you guys knew were coming as far as getting it out on direct before they had the opportunity to cross on that was very well done. And for you guys on your cross, the way that you would kind of keep asking the question until you got the answer that you wanted. I was very impressed by the way that you did that, but it wasn't in a way that was badgering. So I think you guys all did very well.
All right, and with that, y'all are ready till the next round. Oh, round two characters are out.
Let's